Will Harleen Deol be the reason that India don't lift this World Cup?
With 2 consecutive losses, the batting of the Indian team is of course under scrutiny, especially the position of Harleen Deol at number 3, not only because she has got starts but has failed time and again to convert it into a big score, but also because of her strike rate. And that has been a conversation not just amongst fans but also with the pundits. Now before we talk about Harleen Deol, the number 3 batter, and if the Indian team mid World Cup need to think of a change, hit the subscribe button, and here's a promo from our membership.
What I was specifically brought in to do was ball tracking data. That's why your technical analysis is so good, because I watch your channel for that, and it's always like a learning experience. The rest of it was my own data from various sources which I can't reveal, but I had like multiple databases that I then sort of allied with the ball tracking data.
But the question from there is, how does he start? Like, what is his process like?
That time the focus was on the World Cup, right? September, I wrote code like a dog. I took the Indian bowlers, I took the components of their ball speed, release speed, and I made it interact with the pitch to keep getting selected. With Harleen, I can tell you.
The first thing that's important to understand is why Harleen Deol was given the responsibility of batting at number 3 for this Indian team. When you look at her numbers in the past 1 year, you'll realize that it makes sense for her to have got that position. In fact, she's one of only the few batters in this current era to constantly be batting at number 3 and be backed regularly. In the 19 games she's played in the last 1 year, she averages 36.6 at a strike rate of 79. This, to go with 100 and 250s, is the reason why Harleen Deol has been batting at number 3 for the Indian team. In fact, what's mind-boggling is how consistent she's been at getting starts. In just 2 out of these 19 innings has she been dismissed on a score of less than 10, and every time other than this she's been able to come in, get some sort of score and occupy the crease for a decent amount of time. Naturally, because of the fact that she's also in this 1 year just batted the most number of innings at number 3, she becomes the highest scorer in the world for this period at that number 3 position. In fact, only 2 other batters in Elise Perry and Sharmeen Akhtar have even batted more than 10 innings at number 3. Both, however, either average more than Harleen Deol or have a strike rate better than hers. And when you see all of this and tie it back to a strike rate and average at number 3, it paints quite the picture, because there's 2 things that are happening. The first thing is that Harleen Deol is getting a start in almost every single game, but her conversion rate is horrible. She's got just 3 scores of 50 plus in these 19 innings. And the second thing is that because her strike rate is only 79, if she's only going to give you that 30-35 runs, does it make sense for the Indian team to have her play at a strike rate of just around 80, or would it make sense to have someone who can accelerate the innings at that position?
This is why we decided to dig into the 19 innings that she played at number 3 and break things down a little further. Not just with her strike rate averages and dot ball percentages, but her correlation with how the openers do as well. Before we get into the numbers, there are a couple of things we've learned already. The first and the most important, especially for a batter at number 3 in any lineup, is the fact that you need to be able to bat under pressure, and Harleen Deol with these numbers certainly doesn't. And I say this because whenever she has walked in with the team score of less than 50, she averages just 16 with a strike rate of 61. So not only is she not scoring a lot of runs, she's also consuming a lot of balls before she gets out for a score of just 16. Right, so we have now understood that she hasn't really shown any evidence that she can bat under pressure. So this is why we checked if the openers do give her a decent start where they score 50 plus but less than 75 when she walks in, is she able to score? Even here, even though there's a slight improvement, these numbers are not all that impressive, because she has an average of 33, which can be decent, but she has a strike rate of just 69, and as a number 3 batter, this is just not good enough. The only time her number stands out at the number 3 position is when the openers have an opening stand of more than 75 runs. Here she has an average of 66 and a strike rate of 97. Not only does her average double, but she's able to score almost run a ball. And this is quite problematic, because as a number 3 in a batting lineup, you need to be able to score when your openers fail, and she is not able to do that. And you can't rely on the openers to get a good start for the number 3 of your batting lineup to do well. And even when the openers do well, she doesn't have an average strike rate of 100, which is all the more problematic.
And this is where we start to look at how she's done in that middle phase of cricket. What happens is that Harleen Deol usually finds herself coming into a situation where she's in the overs of 11 to 40. And this happens because over the past season, the trend has been that the Indian openers have more or less always given India a good start, and from there it becomes Harleen and one of the openers' prerogative to do well in the middle overs. We've broken the middle overs down into 10 over phases, and we'll see that in each phase she gets better and better. From the the overs of 11 to 20, she has a strike rate of 60.6. In overs 21 to 30, she has a strike rate of 68.2. And for the first time, her strike rate goes beyond 100 at 109 in the overs of 31 to 40. But of course, the data is skewed in the sense that Harleen Deol doesn't often find herself batting as deep as the 31st to 40th over. And this is because we've already seen how her scores have panned out, where she's barely gone past 50 or 100, and she usually finds herself getting out before 50. The other criticism and something you always hear with Harleen Deol is that she's someone who takes a lot of dot balls and struggles to rotate strike. We also looked at this data for the various phases, and it's not surprising what the numbers show. In the overs of 11 to 20, she has a dot ball percent of 64.9. This comes down slightly to 56.1 in overs 21 to 30, and in the final phase where a strike rate is up in the 31st to 40th over, this dot ball percentage comes down to 36.6. Something to keep in mind, however, is that the middle overs is the period where the field is spread out, and so you would assume that it naturally becomes a little easier for the batters to be able to rotate strike. However, in the case of Harleen Deol, this is definitely not happening. And one thing you want to also look at here is how she's done based on the country she's been facing. Now, one thing you need to realize is that Harleen Deol has batted 19 innings in the past 1 year, where she's played various nations, cemented a spot at number 3, and then come into the World Cup. However, if you look at how she's fared against different countries, it paints a completely contrasting picture. Because here, if you'll have a look at her numbers against Australia, England, and South Africa specifically, the teams that we know are better off as compared to other sides, and also teams that have really good bowling lineups, Harleen Deol tends to fall short. Not only in her averages, not only in her strike rates, but also in her dot ball percentages. Where her averages and strike rates are extremely low as compared to other nations, her dot ball percentage is a lot higher as compared to the other nations. While her average does not cross 30 against any of these nations, what happens is her strike rate also never crosses 70 against any of these three nations, but more importantly, her dot ball percentage is in the 60s for all of these nations. And the reason we are putting so much emphasis on dot ball percentage is because it dictates the flow of the game. Imagine a situation where India are 100 for 1 and then Harleen Deol comes in. Now, if she bats with a dot ball percentage of 60, and that means her strike rate is only about 60 because she's not able to rotate strike often, she does a couple of things. Not only is she adding a lot more pressure on her batting partner, but she's also allowing the bowler to settle into a rhythm. She's allowing the bowler to be able to set up batters and make sure that whatever momentum the team might have had slowly goes away from them. In fact, this also helps the opposition bowlers who might be wanting to bowl in tandem, and it helps them create a partnership because usually they're able to bowl most deliveries in an over to Harleen Deol. In contrast, if India is something like 20 for 1 and Harleen Deol walks in, the one good thing she does is that she's able to bat time and she's able to hold one end up. But once again, it leads to a lot of pressure because although she's holding the end up, she's also not scoring a lot of runs, thereby not exactly releasing the pressure.
And this is why we asked ourselves, who does she struggle against? What type of bowler, or if there is any particular kind of bowler that she really struggles to? What we found out is a little concerning because she struggles the most against the most common type of bowler in the international circuit, and that's right arm medium. She has an average of just 28, she strikes at 70 and has the highest dot ball percentage of 61, which is concerning because this is the kind of bowler that you will find in every other team. But not just that, she also struggles against left arm orthodox, where she does have an average of 34, but she only strikes at 71 and has the second highest dot ball percentage of 58. So whether it's the common type of pace or left arm spin, she finds herself in trouble. And so this is why we try to look at a most productive shot, which is the drive, and we've looked at a strike rate while playing the drive as compared to Pratika Rawal, Harmanpreet Kaur and Elise Perry, because Elise Perry is of course another number 3 batter, so we thought it's only fair to compare her to one of the best. Now if you look at these numbers, the message is very clear. Harleen Deol is only better than Pratika Rawal in terms of her strike rate, which is no surprise because Pratika Rawal also gets scrutinized for her strike rate overall, which is also why when Smriti Mandhana does get out early, and when Pratika Rawal and Harleen Deol are trying to build on a partnership, it almost feels like the game is drifting away from the Indian team regardless of the start.
And this is where we come to the current 2025 World Cup. What you'll see is that India have lost their last couple of games but started off their campaign strong, winning the first couple of games. In all, Harleen Deol so far has averaged 36.2 at a strike rate of 74. And if you look at this, it paints such a similar picture to how she's operated in the entire past season. Harleen Deol has once again been able to put in an average that is in the mid-30s but without any kind of really big score. Neither has she got a single 50 in this tournament nor has she got 100 yet, but every time she's managed to get a really good start and then find herself getting out. And if you follow the World Cup, you know that India in terms of their batting has had a situation where the middle order has crumbled and only in a couple of innings have they been able to do decently. And while in the first two games she did get scores of 40, she was not able to go on and convert that start into something big which would ensure that India would be getting higher scores. Along with that, the trend of how she operated when the openers do well holds true here as well. Because in the only game that the Indian openers did well is the only game where Harleen Deol actually scored at a decent strike rate. In fact, that is the only match in the tournament so far where she scored at a strike rate of more than 90. And this is where a few questions come to our mind. The first is obviously, is Harleen Deol actually good enough to bat at number 3 for India? And the answer to that honestly lies with the team management, but it lies in the style in which they want to play the game. If India are looking for a player at number 3 who can give runs of 35 to 40 and do it at a strike rate of 75 odd, then Harleen Deol is a perfect player. If what they're looking for is someone who can just come in and just hold that one end up and just get some kind of runs going in every game, Harleen Deol is your go-to number 3. However, if India is looking for someone who at that number 3 position can constantly get scores 50 plus or get a century every once in a while, then India needs to look past Harleen Deol, or Harleen Deol has to make a drastic improvement mid-World Cup.
Now this has been our video digging into Harleen Deol, the number 3 batter. If you have enjoyed this video, like, share and subscribe, all that good stuff. All of our links are in the description below. Check out our socials if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.